Hi folks, today I'm going to talk to you about Luther Standing Bear and how it is that I have some of his beaded sandals and his walking stick. Now, Luther was born in 1868. He grew up on the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota. And Luther became famous for some of the books that he wrote, like My People the Sioux, Land of the Spotted Eagle, My Indian Childhood, and others. And eventually in 1905 he came to California, and because he wanted to get into acting, and he became an Indian actor and a dancer, and he met my wife Dolores' mother. They were dancers together in Hollywood, and eventually Luther adopted Virginia Miller and gave her the name Birdwoman, or Sheowin Miller, which is a name that Sheowin retained her whole life. Sheowin's book, The Wind Erases Your Footprints, was published about life on the Navajo reservation during the Depression. So Luther was a very interesting fellow. I want to read some of his writing. He went to the Carlisle Indian School. He wrote, "The civilizing process began at Carlisle with clothes. Whites believed the Indian children could not be civilized while wearing moccasins and blankets. Their hair was cut because in some mysterious way, long hair stood in the path of our development. They were issued the clothes of the white men, high collars, stiff bosom shirts, and suspenders fully 3 inches in width, which were uncomfortable." And he talks about all of the details of life on in the homes and on the reservation. Eventually he was with Wild Bill Cody's show. He worked with him. He left in 1905. He said he was no longer willing to endure the existence under the control of an overseer. According to Luther, "I left reservation life and my native people, the Oglala Sioux, because I was no longer willing to endure existence under the control of an overseer. For about the same number of years, I had tried to live a peaceful and happy life. I tried to adapt myself and make readjustments to fit the white man's mode of existence, but I was unsuccessful. I developed into a chronic disturber. I was a bad Indian, and the agent and I never got along. I remained a hostile, even a savage, if you please, and I still am. I am incurable." So Luther wrote The Land of the Spotted Eagle, My People the Sioux, My Indian Boyhood. He wrote, he said that the whites' efforts to make over the Indian into the likeness of the white race, but the white men seem to have difficulty realizing that people who live differently from themselves still might be traveling the upward and progressive road of life. Okay? So he's quite an interesting fellow. His books are readily available on Amazon or wherever quality books are sold. And so after Dolores died, we donated Luther's beaded robe, a beautiful beaded robe, to the Crazy Horse Museum in South Dakota. It's more or less across the street from the Mount Rushmore monument. And you can see the robe on a display there with one of Luther's books. And eventually we'll show you some of his other artifacts. We have his pipe still and a few other things. But the walking stick of Luther's is going to go to the museum. It's not clear how Luther used it, maybe just ceremonially, maybe because he wanted it to rain. I'm not sure. It's turquoise with a few stripes on it. We believe Luther made this in his own hand. Okay, beautiful little stick, very simple. And I think there was a peg that broke off somewhere along the way. And then these 4 beaded moccasins are going to go to the museum at the Crazy Horse, which is, still being, the Crazy Horse Monument is being, it's a work in progress. It probably won't be done for another 50 or 100 years. These, we believe, were Luther's sandals. Oh, I don't know how often he wore these, but it's beautiful beadwork. Luther may have used them a few times in ceremonies and dances. These were probably made 1910 we assume, 1920. Luthor died in 39, so 1939. So we're not sure how many times he used them. They were used. They're in pretty good condition. These belonged to Luthor's wives. These are more of a aquamarine color. A lot of squares, triangles, beautiful traditional Lakota beadwork. Beautiful sandals. They've been well preserved. And the two pairs of children's sandals. Here is one with, looks like it would have originally been white or tan with yellow and blue and red. Okay. You can see they've been worn a little bit. This probably would have been worn by one of the children when they were 2 years old. I'm not sure which one. And another pair, we call these the American moccasins, red, white, and blue. You can see they've been worn to dances, powwows, ceremonials, whatever. And where it's been folded, you can see that the beadwork is actually pretty bright and clean. Most of these have been in storage all these years. If you want to see these in person, you're going to have to go to the Crazy Horse Museum in South Dakota. There is already a display there with Luthor's robe. These will be added to them shortly. And so I don't know the exact details of how these were passed to Shiowen, but sometime before Luthor's death, Shiowen was given these sandals and many of the other artifacts of Luthor's, his drum, his pipes, many other things, his robe, of course, the stick. And then Shiowen died in 1983, so they became the property of Dolores, my wife. And Dolores passed away in 2008. We donated the robe, and these have been in my possession, and I feel like the best thing to do with them is to put them where everybody can see them. And the Crazy Horse Museum does seem to be the most appropriate place for anybody in the world who wants to see these to go look at them and learn more about Luthor Standing Bear. So his books are readily available. Some are reprints. You can buy them in used bookstores or at Amazon, and I highly encourage you to learn more about the life of this really fascinating fella. And thank you for listening to me.